Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Black Book Today. Sam McKee and Bob Hollywood Hayden with you here from Harrisburg for the annual Standardbred Horse Sales Company yearling auction. 72nd renewal of the auction, and as is usual, trotters are in demand. I guess the trotting trend now says that history does tend to repeat itself.
Yeah, you can see why they want a trotter here. From 1978 to 2006, that's 29 editions. Only 4 times did the 2-year-old trotting colt of the year come back to repeat as a 3-year-old. But this year, when Lucky Chucky is voted 3-year-old of the year, that's going to be the 4th straight year with Donato Hanover, Dewey Cheatham and Hal, Muscle Hill, and then Lucky Chucky. So this is a trend we're seeing now. They're not racing them as often. They're coming back, racing a selective schedule, and maintaining that form from 2 to 3.
Several horses of the year mentioned in those trotters that you just alluded to, but I think the horse of the year for 2010 is pretty well nailed down by what Rock and Roll Heaven has done over the past couple months.
Yeah, Rock and Roll Heaven will be the horse of the year, and that's the 8th straight year that a 3-year-old will be voted Horse of the Year. Prior, the record was 4 straight. I think the reason for that is that the big races now are big events. The North America Cup, Hambletonian, Meadowlands Pace, big races like that, Little Brown Jug, more eyeballs on that than ever before.
And speaking of Rock and Roll Heaven, his trainer Bruce Saunders will be joining us shortly, so stay tuned to the Black Book Today. We'll be right back.
The Bow River 14-karat gold equine jewelry collection has some of the most unique custom equine jewelry designs. The master craftsmanship of our designers will provide a piece of jewelry you will treasure for years to come. By use of state-of-the-art equipment and hand finishing and quality stones will give you the craftsmanship and a piece of jewelry that exhibits the fine quality you expect and will enjoy. Our jewelry is 14-karat yellow and white gold, set with brilliant cut diamonds. Our designs seek to capture the world of horses and the relationship they have with their owners. Wearing one of these unique designs will recapture the horse experience you expect. Our satisfaction guarantee ensures your complete satisfaction with our products. If you are not satisfied with our merchandise, return it to us in its original condition for an exchange or full refund within 30 days of purchase. You can be assured that our prompt professional service will provide the service you expect. Visit us in the Northwest Hall exhibitor area or anytime at www.bowriverjewelry.com. Bow River Jewelry. Original designs, quality you can trust.
Welcome back to the Black Book Today, and before I introduce Bruce Saunders, I want to give you a little chronology. Entering September, I thought Rock and Roll Heaven was a top horse. Entering October, I thought he was a great horse. Entering November, I already filled out my Horse of the Year ballot, Rock and Roll Heaven. Bruce Saunders, you trained the colt. How's he doing?
He's doing great. Seems like he thrives on work. As you alluded to, the more he does, the better he gets. And I can't be any happier with what he's accomplished. I'm very proud of him. He was a good colt early on, and as the years gone on, he's continued to distinguish himself.
He's always been a good horse. I really honestly think the word great on Jug Day became part of everybody's vocabulary. What was that experience like for you?
I agree with that assessment. I was always reluctant to use that adjective relative to him because people would say, well, you're just a little biased and prejudiced. The Jug Day itself, being from the East Coast and feeling the pace in the North American Cup, the big money races had a lot more credence than the Jug. Not being from the Midwest, I completely changed my philosophy, having had the Jug Kool-Aid, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Probably more moved in the winner's circle after the second heat of the Jug than any time in my professional career.
149-2, twice in the same day with a huge back half, 53-4. Rock and Roll Heaven, just one of those guys who just keeps on going. It's just like he seems to love being out there too.
You know, we see professional athletes changing the nature of the games that they're in. This particular horse, I think, can brush from start to finish. He's got exceedingly high speed. We've seen 25 and a piece quarters at various times in his career. But you saw it in the Meadowlands Pace final. I mean, he was under pressure from start to finish. Very, very fast fractions and never stopped going. And I think we'll see more of that in the game. A lot of our races are sprints. Sometimes they'll start sprinting early, take a little breather and then sprint late. But a lot of the classic events now are getting to be sprints from start to finish, and he can do that.
And for me, the highlight of 2010 was the moment he hit the 3/4 in the Breeders' Crown of 119-4. This horse was parked past the 53 2.5 and then threw up a 26-2. And the horse sitting behind him was one more lap. So it was, everything about it was just unbelievable to me. I can imagine how you must have felt.
3 or 4 times in his career, my hair stood on end watching some of the things that he's done. That, again, was one of the instances. I don't know what the split was, but he paced around the second turn so quickly. I know that, you know, Timmy was happy to turn him loose at that point, but he paced around those horses in an instant. And I really didn't think Danny was chasing him much going down the backside. And when the teletimer came up in 19-4, I'm thinking, well, that's preposterous. And as I looked in the back of the bus, I'm thinking, well, you know, somebody's got to have a little pace back there, or are we going to be able to get to the finish line? And when he turned for home and Danny asked him, you know, I saw he, you know, he dug in and sprinted off again. But, you know, that's the kind of speed we're talking about.
But unlike Harrisburg in the yearling section, you didn't get him as a yearling. How did you get him?
You know, it all stemmed back to a private purchase the year before, a horse called My Old Friend John. I purchased from Roy O'Hagan for Carrie Potkin and Bill Matz, and we had moderate success with him. And Roy told me at that time, he said, I'm going to the sale in Lexington and I'm going to buy a Rock and Roll Hanover colt. Do you like them? I said, geez, he was a great horse. I think he'll do great. He said, well, I'll call you when they're ready. And in the springtime, late May, early June, I think the first qualifiers with Scioto, and he qualified Rock and Roll Hanover and the second colt, a Cambest colt, and he wanted to sell them. He called me, had a great picture of him on the USDA website. He takes great pictures, the colt does, and Mr. Bellino saw the picture and called me, and we started a conversation. And after a second baby race out there in 57, back half in 55 and a piece, I went out and looked at him and did a pre-purchase examination. I liked both colts, but we really went out for the Rock and Roll Hanover colt, Rock and Roll Heaven, and Mr. Bellino consummated the deal over the phone that day.
And hats off to Frank Bellino. I saw you in the winner's circle at the Jug, and you mentioned something about next year. Were you thinking maybe looking for adventure, the nice 2-year-old you have, maybe next year doing the same thing?
No, I don't think he can do the same thing that this horse can, but looking for adventure, has unbelievable amount of talent. Huge high speed. He was sensational, finishing third in the matron eliminations last Saturday. He drew the 4-hole down there this Saturday. I have very high hopes for him, but there'll never be another Rock and Roll Heaven.
Now, you had been in the some of the big races prior. I mean, horses, but they were like also-ran horses, like a Magnificent, a good one. Misfit was one of the top free-for-allers. How would you describe the entire 2010 experience to the guy here at the sales? Says, hey, Bruce, find me one just like that.
Well, it's kind of like buying the lottery ticket. You know, we got the lottery ticket this year. You know, we hit the Grand Slam. There's going to be a horse come out of the sale, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4, that are going to have incredible careers. Will we be lucky enough? You know, we took a couple of swings yesterday. We brought a 3/4 brother in blood to Rock and Roll Heaven. We bought an Art Major filly. If Mr. Bellino loves this aspect of the game, we're going to continue to play it. But, you know, you have to be so very, very fortunate. There's so much luck involved in the game in every aspect of it. Way more so here than anything else that we do.
Well, Bruce Saunders, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. And on the way out, I'm going to check and see if you have any more lottery tickets in your pocket. So thanks a lot for everything.
Thank you, Holly.
One thing about Harrisburg, you just never know who you're going to run into. And Holly and I are joined right now by a man who's been to the top of the mountain twice as an owner. That's Gord Rumpel from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And Gord, back in 1982, you went to the Meadowlands sale to buy a horse named Liscara, but you had to go to Plan B, and Plan B turned into an A+.
Yeah, it sure did. It was quite a go-round. We had to end up buying a weanling for $10,000, and it made me a considerable amount of money.
And that weanling was on the road again, and Holly and I are both big fans of his. He was an iron tough racehorse. What made you buy him?
Well, I came down to buy a filly because we were having Alberta was going to have a new filly race. They were getting our harness races really going, and they thought they'd have a stake race for fillies, and that would improve the breed. And so I came down and I brought my trainer with me, and we had planned to buy a filly called Liscara, and she was pulled from the sale. So we decided we'd buy something else, and so we bought 2 overnight race horses that were pretty good that we thought would fit in the Invitational in Calgary. And I happened to be going through the book and seeing where there was a chestnut weanling for sale, and I went and watched what was happening, and I understand that he was by Happy Motoring, and that Happy Motoring was a son of Most Happy Fellow, and I watched some 2-year-olds go through that were being sold by Most Happy Fellow, and they were going for $10,000, and so when this weanling came up, I went and bid on him, and I thought, you know, $10,000. It went to $10,000. I thought that was a good buy, so I thought my investment was secure, and so I bought him.
And you had 2 other horses that you bought as well. And you're an old car dealer, so you made sure that you didn't have to pay any extra for the freight on getting that weanling home, right?
That's right. I went and checked with the airlines to find out what it would cost me to ship them home, and I could ship 3 in a packet for the same price as I could ship 2, so it didn't cost me any more money. So I thought, well, you know, I can take a shot here. And so I took a run at it, and I always thought that he was the best horse that we bought that day.
Now, Gord, the purses had exploded in the early 80s. Now, when you paid $10,000 for a chestnut, were you thinking at that point in terms of stakes races, in terms of racing in the biggest money events?
No, what happened was we went to, we took the horse back to Alberta, and Harry trained him, and so anyway, we trained him down, and you know, he trained in 2 minutes. He qualified, and he trained at his first race. He raced in 2 minutes, and then we went into a stake race, and I wasn't even at home for the stake race. I happened to be away with my family on a holiday, and I was ended up in Toronto at the racetrack, and Glenn Brown said to me, he said there was a colt raced out in Alberta. He said he won by 20 lengths in a 2-year-old race, and I said, oh, I said, what would his name be on the road again? And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's my horse. and he broke the track record.
And that was just one of his great wins. I mean, this horse was just amazing, tougher than nails. The horse, look him in the eye, he'd just dig in and fight, wouldn't he?
It was an amazing horse. It was a, you know, there was something about Road. Road was the horse that anybody could have owned. And so anybody that went to a racetrack said, you know, I could have owned that horse. And he became the common man's horse. He
named after the Willie Nelson song.
Yeah, well, the story was there. I was going home from work one day, and Willie Nelson was singing On the Road Again, and I went home and I said to my wife, Ala, I said, Ala, I got a name for our colt. She said, what are you going to call him? I said, we're going to call him On the Road Again. I said, you know, Willie Nelson's got this song out, and I said, on top of that, he's by Happy Motoring and by Bye Bye Molly. And if you're saying bye bye and you're Happy Motoring, you're on the road again. That's where it came in.
Made good sense.
And what about a couple of years later? I mean, nobody really expects to have another great horse. Matt Scooter comes along, who was just sensational.
Well, you know, the thing about Matt Scooter was I have a grandson named Matthew, and I'm looking through the book and I see Matt Scooter, and by mistake I bought a filly one day out of Direct Scooter for $100,000, and so Direct Scooter owed me.
So you're looking for a Direct Scooter for payback.
No, well, I happened to see him and I said, you know, and then I watched, and the number when he was going down the chute into the Byron Burns Stadium there, Phil Tully's sale, and I said, I run over and I said to Harry, I said, did you see that horse go through? And he said, yeah. I said, how did he stand? He said, he stands good. I said, but he says, he's a little bit crazy. I said, that don't matter. I said, come on. I said, that's what we need. So we went down, and there was a couple other fellas bidding on him that I know, and so anyway, I bought it for $17,500, and we took him home, and we took him to the farm in Ontario, and the first day we took him out of the barn, he ran away on Huey. And I had to yell at Huey to let him go because he was dragging him in the grass with it. But no, he turned out to be a great horse.
And Gord, your trainer Harry Poulton, unknown at the time in North America when you had On the Road Again, but he did a tremendous job with both horses.
Yeah, unbelievable. Harry is a hard-working guy, you know, and he. One of the reasons that Harry came to work for me was the fact that I used to see him around the track all the time, and he was always interested in horses, and he always put the time in, and he really worked hard at it. And you know, one of the great things about those horses was that On the Road Again was never injected for anything, ever. Harry was on his knees rubbing that horse, and the same with Matt. The only thing that Matt ever got, only one needle he ever got was for his stifle. That was the only needles that ever went into those horses, ever.
You know, a lot of people forget it was Matt Scooter who lowered the Niatrust time trial mark, which electrified the industry back in '80. Then he goes in '88 and goes 48-2. That must have been some day.
Yeah, well, we planned to do that. That was a planned event. A lot of people don't know it, but that was a planned event. Actually, we were going to do, I was going to do it with On the Road Again, and I became great friends with Oscar Kimmelman at Blue Chip Farms, and Oscar said, we don't need to prove anything, Gordy. He said, you know, I don't think we should do that. He said, I don't need to prove anything. And in Rhodes' 3-year-old year, at the end of Rhodes' 3-year-old year, Oscar bought 50% of On the Road Again with me over a handshake. And it was probably one of the most memorable deals I ever had with anybody in my life, because we became great friends, and it was really a great association I had with Blue Chip Farms and Oscar Kimmelman. He was a grand man.
So Gordon, lightning has struck twice for you. You're here at Harrisburg. Are you buying any yearlings and trying to third time the charm this deal?
Well, you know, I give Bill Peretti a little action yesterday.
I'm sure he appreciated it.
Oh yeah. He told me I stole him, but that's not unusual for Bill. But no, we bought a colt yesterday, and I think he'll be all right. We'll take a run at him. We won't race him too hard as a 2-year-old, and we'll bring him back and see what we can do as a 3- and a 4-year-old. I think that's basically been our plan from day one, and we'll continue it. Whatever is successful, we'll do.
Gord, thanks so much for taking a few minutes to join us. Great stories with On the Road Again and Matt Scooter. Continued success.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Great.
More
Thanks.
of the Black Book today coming your way. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for standard-bred, thoroughbred, stable supplies, or nutritional products? The Harness Shop Online specializes in bringing only the highest quality horse and equine equipment and products like harnesses, bridles, blankets, coolers, and apparel direct to you, our valued customers. Come see us at the Harrisburg and Delaware sales. Also, check the November issue of Hoofbeats for specials or call us at 1-866-469-8181. Call or email us for a free digital catalog. The Harness Shop Online, your one-stop shop for horse and equine products, equipment, and supplies.
Sometimes it's hard to keep up with all the technological advancements nowadays, but here at Harrisburg, the Standardbred Horse Sales Company is stride for stride with everything evolving. In fact, you can bid by phone and watch live streaming video online at theblackbooktoday.com.
Yeah, this is not your father's Harrisburg sale. I actually saw a guy here at the sale with a 1948 Harrisburg catalog, and number 113 was Gene Abbey. But those days are gone. Now we have the videos, we have the internet, live streaming. And for our friends in Canada, I saw Mark Stacey, a 3-time Breeders' Crown winner, Casey Coleman, Greg McNair. They're not only kicking tires, they're active and buying.
And the Canadians are watching on www.standardbredcanada.ca as well.
Irv Miller's here, and Irv, I don't want to mention your name first because I want to mention John Carver's name. Winning a Breeders' Cup and a Breeders' Crown in the same year. Wow, that's unbelievable.
That is wow. Pretty outstanding, because the horse that he won the cup with was 37-1 too.
Now tell us about your Breeders' Crown winner this year.
Man of many missions. He was just incredible. I mean, just tons of talent. Just had to wait on him to mature. And when he did, a little later in the year when I thought he was about ready, he really come across and did some amazing things. World record, 53-2.
Yeah, now history is full of some great 3-year-olds who had some problems, maybe behaviorally or something at 2. But the talent was always there. Muscles Yankee comes to mind immediately. What can we expect from him next year at 3, hopefully?
I think some amazing things, because I think the little time off here to mature, I think this horse is, I could just see him grow just at Lexington this year. The last little bit of the years, I just could see him fill out and just start to really mature. So I think if we give him that time through the winter here, next year he could be a really special horse.
That can be a little tricky on a 2-year-old with growth spurts during the year, right, racing?
What's that now?
When they have the growth spurts during the year, who knows
that's
what
what
can
happened to him. He was just immature mentally too. He didn't have it together when we first started.
How about the first crop at Donato Hannah? Are we looking at some of those?
Yeah, we're looking at them. I think they're an Andover Hall. An Andover Hall, a little refined, a little typier type horse.
Okay, how about geography? Pennsylvania, New York, you're from Illinois, all around. You played the Canada Grand Circuit. Where are we looking?
Yeah, everywhere. I think that it's a big play right now to be in the Sire Stake programs in New York, Canada, Indiana especially. The money they're going for. I think Pennsylvania is a little light with the 4 legs and 1 final compared to some of the other divisions, other states.
Now, how about yourself? You know, there's only one Herb Miller, so how much time do you spend on the internet, your catalog, videos?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time looking at videos, just going through horses and seeing what makes sense, what looks good to me.
Do you eliminate horses like right away? Do you know, to lessen your work for later on?
Yeah, when I'm looking at the videos, if I don't like a video, I don't come back and look at the horse. There's no need for that.
Now, your catalog, do you put a price, an approximate price for a horse, top of the page? Is that a limit? What is that?
No, what I do is I try to find horses that I really like, and then I just, you know, I narrow that down day to day and go off of the price somewhat too. But I've got to have a good-looking individual to start with, and then the prices. Normally, I figure they've got to make it to the races and be something, and then the price matters. Because if they don't, doesn't matter what you pay for.
What if you put like a $40,000 limit and you see the horse going for 10 or 15 and stopping right there? Would that sometimes turn you off?
Absolutely not. If I like the horse, I'll buy him. I bought a filly at home this year for $3,500. It don't bother me to pay less money for it.
Southwind Tempo, I think, went for $3,200 or something like that too, and Mr. Muscle Man was a $2,000
I bought
dealer.
some very nice horses. A little horse that you'll remember, Fulfilled Dreams. I paid $3,200 for him.
That's right. Now, was your barn mostly the young horses, or do we have loyal opposition in the making in there somewhere?
Well, we hope we have loyal opposition in the making, but we have, we have a couple old horses come back, the 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. Liz again's coming back, but mainly 2- and 3-year-olds.
Before we let you go, Herb Miller, 2005, you sent out the odds-on favorite in the Hambletonian. What was that feeling like?
Oh, it was a phenomenal feeling. It's great to have the favorite in there. You know, the favorite's much better than being 10-1 because that means you got a real shot.
And that was Classic Photo. It wound up finishing second, but then he won the Canadian Trotting Classic. How are the Classic Photos doing, by the way?
They're doing good. Actually, this year they've had a little better year than they have in the past. You know, they've got a little older, but now they've sold him off, so he won't be here anymore. But he's had a pretty good year this year.
Okay, Herb Miller's also had a good year. Thanks for stopping by, Herb.
Yep, thanks.
Here at Harrisburg, there are so many great human interest stories, and one of the biggest has to be Craig Henderson. And hobbies can lead to horses, and if you don't believe it, listen to him connect the dots between golf, bridge, and a champion pacing filly.
Sam, I played golf in New Buffalo, Michigan with a friend of a friend about 11 years ago, and on the 4th hole, I told him that I'd like to play online bridge. And he took his phone out of his pocket, which really wasn't allowed at this golf course, and he called a guy named Richard Young, who I'd never met before in my life. And he said, "Richard, I've got a guy here that plays online bridge." And so for about a year and a half on and off, once a month, once every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, we played bridge online. And then one day Richard said to me, "Well, why don't you come to Florida and we'll play golf and have dinner?" And so I played golf that day, and there was a rather smallish guy in the foursome, and he was a scratch golfer, and I was quite impressed with his athletic ability. And so on about the 3rd hole, I said to him, "What do you do for a living, Steve?" And it turned out to be Steve Condren. And he said, "Well, I'm a harness racehorse driver." And I said, "A harness racehorse driver? How do you know Richard, or why do you know Richard?" And he said, "Oh, Richard really likes harness horses." And I had grown up as a kid going to Rochester, New York to visit my grandparents when I was 11 or 12. And we'd spend the day at Finger Lakes in the afternoon, and then at night we'd go to Batavia Downs, and my grandmother loved the harness horses, and I did that for about 4 or 5 years when I was younger. But anyways, to make a long story short, Richard and I became friends, and he said, "Well, maybe someday we'll buy a horse together." So that's kind of how our friendship and our connection happened.
And the first horse you bought, you talk about starting at the top of the mountain, the champion pacing filly put on a show.
Yeah, that in itself is amazing because for probably 5 years, Richard said, "Oh, I bought these 3 horses at Harrisburg or at Lexington." And he said, "Just choose one and you can buy 25% or 33%. Of course, in Richard's case, he said, "You can't buy more than half because I get to make all the decisions," which was perfectly fine with me because I'm new at this. And for the first year, I said, "Well, I'll watch, Richard." And so I watched, and Richard didn't have a very good year. And I watched again the next year, and Richard didn't have a very good year. And unfortunately for Richard, as the story goes, that went on and on and on. So in October or November of '08, right after the Harrisburg sale, he said, "Oh, well, I only bought one horse this year, and I really want you to buy this horse with me because I need somebody to change my luck. And I need somebody that I really like somebody to come to the track with me and enjoy this together." So he said, I bought a horse called Put on a Show for $75,000, and in my business, when the economy's bad, my business is actually good. It's sort of a counter-cyclical business. And so I said, "Okay, Richard, I'm in for a third."
I'll be darned.
Now,
And Holly, that was lightning in
Yeah.
a bottle, wasn't it?
What were your realistic expectations when you went in for the very first time?
Well, my expectations in anything that I do from a hobby standpoint is, ideally, I just want to break even. So you can't imagine how ecstatic I am to be in this position, to have this magnificent horse.
Now, Put on a Show has had so many great races over the past 2 years. Is there one race in particular that stands out as your favorite?
Well, I tell you, I think her best race was a race she lost, and it was the race in Toronto where we lost to Western Silk by a neck. And we got sort of caught behind Fancy Philly, who we thought was going to take off, and for whatever reason she didn't, and obviously something was wrong because she really hasn't raced since then. And so we had to go outside, and we were behind, and I think she ran 25-3 that race and got beat a neck or a nose. And you know, clearly, if the race had been another 10 yards, I think we would have won. But I think that was her best race, coming home in 25-3.
Now, Craig, how do you fight the temptation to say, hey, this is an easy game, and go out and get yourself 5, 10, 15 horses the very next year?
Let me say this. I bought one this year, and I know I've already started at the top, and it's all downhill from here. But if I can be in the harness horse business probably for another 20 or 30 years, I'll probably work another 5 to 10 years in my business. But if I can be in the harness horse business for another 20 or 30 years and break even and have a blast, I know it'll never be this good, but if I can have fun and see some horses do well, and I must say, having worked with Chris Ryder, he is a fabulous trainer, and he is very patient and puts the horses first, which I think is very important. And so he's been a big part of me staying in the game, and I've learned a lot from him, and I've certainly learned a lot from Richard and Tim and Jody last year. Jody drove our horse a lot of times. So.
Now, the filly you bought here at Harrisburg is a Rock and Roll Hanover, sister to Hannah Hanover, Breeders' Crown winner. Did she look a little bit like Put on a Show, or what tempted you to buy her?
I said to Chris that I wanted to buy a really good horse, and I took some advice from Chris, and I took some advice from Richard, and I didn't want to interfere with Richard because he's going to buy his own horses this year, and I really wanted to buy one myself and hopefully not make too many mistakes. But I looked at a lot of Rock and Roll Hanover horses, and the one that really looked to me when I just looked at her physically was Easy Rock, and I knew when I came here this morning I was going to buy this horse.
Now, Craig, back in 1991, there's an anecdote that Antonio Chiaravalli and Bill Robinson went to the Kentucky sale and bought 3 horses: La de Sol, Riyadh, and Presidential Ball. A millionaire, a double millionaire, and a triple millionaire. And I remember talking to Bill Robinson years later. He says, we spent an awful lot of time trying to do that again. Yourself, the temptation, you're a realistic guy. You kind of know that this is kind of lightning in a bottle, don't you?
As I said before, it's all downhill from here. But you know, you can own a lot of nice racehorses that hopefully win money, and you can have a lot of fun. This is living the dream for me, and I certainly would love to have another horse like this, but the expectation that I will is very small.
Speaking of living the dream, Put on a Show has another start coming up this year, right in your own backyard in Chicago.
Yeah, the only request that I made for Richard when we were doing our stakes planning this year was to come to Chicago, and so the American National is this Saturday, and we'll be racing in Chicago. We're shipping her today, and I've got 50 or 60 of my friends going out, and so hopefully she'll continue. She's training great. She worked out at the Meadowlands in 152 and 2 this past week and did it easily, so she's still doing quite well.
Maybe we'll get a chance to see her do what I think is probably her best game: close and draw off in the end.
I would hope so. I think this is a race where that's possible. And just also, by the way, she is going to race next year, and she's doing great, and Chris thinks she's capable, and we're going to continue on.
That's good news for everyone in harness racing. Craig Henderson, thanks so much for sharing your
Sam,
time and your story.
Bob,
appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
Continued success with Put on a Show and your new purchase here at Harrisburg.
Thank you.
The Black Book today rolls on. Sam McKee and Hollywood Hayden back with you. Remember the old TV show Star Search? Well, if we had a Star Search among trotting stallions here at Harrisburg, you might be surprised at the results.
Not too many people know the leading trotting stallion in North America right now as we speak is Credit Winner. Wow. New York State and nationally he's doing it. And the most represented sire in the entire yearling sale is Dragon Again with 76.
Always a big demand for the first crop stallions. I'll tell you what, the Colts by Jeremy's Jet actually look pretty good.
And Jeremy's Jet's first crop sells this year. And how good a timing is that? His own sire, Western Hanover's last crop, sold last year. And Sam, how about our friend Muscles Yankee? Muscle Massive this year became the first ever sales topper to win $1 million race when he took the Hambletonian for $1.5 million, and 22 of the 55 Muscles Yankees selling will go on Tuesday.
We'll have more facts and figures all week long here on the Black Book today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You know, this weekend I watched Zenyatta race, the best thoroughbred mare maybe ever. You have the best 3-year-old pacing filly, certainly of 2010, put on the show. How's she doing?
She's doing well.
Is she done for the year, or are we going to see her again?
No, we're racing a week today at Balmoral in the American National.
Okay, the year she's had of $1,000,001, the all-time richest filly. You know, a lot of times 2-year-olds do not come back at 3 at the very, very top level.
Right.
Were you concerned about that at all?
No, I'm going to say no. She had a good year, a good 2-year-old year, and she was always had size and a bit growthy and wide and stuff. So, you know, you never know for sure, but I was fairly confident she'd be, you know, an extra good 3-year-old year.
I'm going to take a guess. The most important race she won for you, Breeders' Crown.
Yeah, absolutely, Breeders' Crown. Yeah.
Why was that?
Well, it's a Breeders' Crown first of all. Second of all, we believe that she's the best 3-year-old filly in the country, and she's been winning most of the starts. She'd only been beaten twice the whole year, so to not win it would have been a disappointment. So we believe we were the best, and if you're the best, you've got to win the Breeders' Crown.
And you did it.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, history is full of great mares who do not have great offspring. Were you concerned at all that Steinem's Place, the 3-year-old filly of 1997, you concerned at all that that might be the case when you got put on a show?
Well, the longer I'm in racing, the longer, the more I learn that rules and theories are made to be broken, because that's what keeps everybody here at Harrisburg. If we knew what was going to happen, we wouldn't be here trying to find the needle in the haystack. But the same applies to that theory. There's all kinds of trends that continually get broken by horses, and I believe in breeding, and if you get the right individual, it happens.
Yeah, you had Cathedra.com too, so you had the rare $1.5 million winner twice for
Right.
fillies.
Right.
Is that going to mean you keep looking for fillies, or are you going to go variety?
It means I keep looking for fillies because that's what my owners want, and that's my customers, and that's great. If I can keep duplicating that, I got no problem with that. Fillies are my main priority buying this year, but we get the occasional colt here and there.
How about trotters? Any trotters?
I buy a few trotters, but I'm not. I don't have the owner base to buy trotters. I am looking for a couple this year. So just a few. Nothing,
Are you a guy who does his research before he gets here? You have the book, every page looked at, all the videos done,
A
internet.
lot. I do as much as I can between my wife and I, and I do a lot. Sometimes you get here and you wish you'd done more because there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah, you once had the Meadowlands Pace favorite too. How about a Meadowlands Pace winner one of these years? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Brett Pelling won a few of those.
Yeah, Pelling was good at it. I'm working on it. Not much else I can tell you.
All right, Chris Ryder, I want to thank you for stopping by. Thanks so much for putting on the show. A couple of great years there.
Yeah.
And we'll see her at 4?
You'll see it 4.
Oh, even better.
This is
Great. Thanks so much, Chris Ryder.
Come visit our vendors at their new location, conveniently located in the Northwest Hall next to Winbeck Consignment. Amy Wildman's staking service is back again this year. Big D's Tack and Vet Supplies. Black Magic, the only source for flex-type premium horse liniment. Bow River, Fine equestrian jewelry. Brodeur, sulky, and harness manufacturers, where quality meets performance. Come visit Custom Embroidery by Rita. Finn Tack, one of the biggest producers and wholesalers of horse equipment for trotting. Lee Visual Imaging Solutions. EB, setting the pace in standardbred horse transportation. Mira, the leading manufacturer of harness clothing in Europe. Pensbury, the name you can rely on for jog carts and sulkies. Come check out the all-new HP X-Core wheels. Regal Colors, providing the highest quality harness racing silks and accessories since 1934. Telstar, we've changed the whole look of sulkies around the world. The Harness Shop Online, your online tack shop offering high quality horse tack, equipment, and supplies. And Harness HD, the leader in standardbred production. These are just a few of the many vendors now located in the Northwest Hall. Don't miss them.
Well, joined by Murray Brown. And Murray, I remember several years ago when Andover Hall's first crop came here, and there was it was a wild time. Everybody seemed to want an Andover Hall. Do you think we'll have the same thing with his son, Donato Hanover, this year?
I'd be surprised if we didn't. Donato was a great horse himself, perhaps an even greater horse than his sire. And his yearlings look great. They've got a wonderful attitude. They trot. They're well gaited. Got their ears up all the time. They're a very nice bunch of horses.
And it's a unique opportunity also because we have Muscle Hill comes out and Dewey Cheatham and Hound next 2 years. So basically, Donato Hanover has the forum to himself almost.
Kind of. And from this point on, of course, it's up to him. If they do well, he'll. And I'd be very surprised and disappointed if they didn't do well. But if he does well, he'll have it all to himself next year. Although there's still a lot of competition amongst the old timers, horses like Andover himself, Candab Hall, Melch's Yankee Glide. They're all great stallions. I can't remember a time in the last 40 or so years where there have been so many real good trotting stallions around.
Now, Murray, how about geography? Geography seems to play a major role now in the buyers, not only who the horses buy, but where he stands.
Oh, no question. People buy horses to make money with them, and they want to be eligible to the Rich Sire Stakes programs as well as the world-class events. So horses from areas such as Pennsylvania, Ontario, Indiana, New York have a huge edge over horses coming from states that don't have comparable Sire Stakes programs.
Now, Murray, with the internet and with videos, do we have as many people visiting the farms to look at yearlings as we used to?
Probably not. There's a few less every year, although wearing my Hanover hat, this year our attendance at the fairgrounds was perhaps a little better than it's been the last 2 years.
Is Harrisburg still a place where you can get a diamond in the rough?
Absolutely. There's something for everybody. It's a department store of horses. There's something for every budget, for every possibility. Perhaps the greatest bargain ever sold in all of harness racing was $900 spent for. I'm having
Fresh Yankee.
Fresh Yankee
Yeah.
here. I had a brain cramp, and she went on to be a great international star. First American-owned horse, or first North American-owned horse to win the Elite Lop, and there have been many other bargains since then.
I saw a stat you came out with right after the Hambletonian that I think 7 of the 8 stakes winners that day, on Hambletonian Day, were sold at Harrisburg. That's big.
That is correct. I don't think anything comparable has ever happened.
That's a huge number. Now, The best way to get a racehorse nowadays, a racehorse, underline race, is that maybe buying them as a yearling? Because
Perhaps.
people aren't giving up their racehorses as easy?
Exactly, or if you want to buy a made racehorse, you're going to have to pay a huge premium for it. People have so many opportunities to go out and make money racing horses that they're reluctant to sell them unless they think they're getting more money for them than they're worth.
Murray, from a breeder standpoint, when they hit the wire in the Hambletonian with Lucky Chucky and Muscle Massive at $10,000 and a $425,000 yearling on the wire together, was that the best of all worlds for a breeder?
I think so. It shows that, you know, you can get them in any price range, anywhere. It's a terrific thing. And of course, both of them were sold here at Harrisburg as yearlings.
And let me ask you also about some really nice sires only have limited crops. So if you want maybe a Glide Master, you don't have as many opportunities as, say, some of the other sires.
That is correct. You know, that holds true for a horse like Glide Master, a horse like Chocolatier. They look very good off of their first crops racing as 2-year-olds this year, but there's just not all that many of them, I guess due to some fertility issues, at least initial fertility issues.
Now, going into the sale, what are you thinking right now prior to the sale for this year at Harrisburg?
You know, I've been called an optimist, and I guess I am, but I think we're going to have a real good sale. I think the stock markets has been very, very good the last few weeks. I think people are somewhat financially bullish because of the Republicans' gains in the House and the Senate. I think, and the biggest part of it is there's never been the opportunity to race for more money than there is right now.
The busiest man in Harrisburg, Murray Brown. Thanks for stopping by, Murray.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
As we wrap up this edition of the Black Book today, Holly, as anticipated, the Canadian buyers have been very active here at Harrisburg.
That's for sure. Every name you can think of in Canada is here. So Bob McIntosh, Karen Feckett's here, Dave Maneri. I even saw Keith Waples buying one of the colts opening day. So the huge influence of this sale going north to Canada obviously is prominent.
And we saw the Donato domination not only with his offspring, but with his relatives as well.
That's right. The sales topper was a sister to Donato Hanover. The second most expensive was a son of Donato Hanover. Remember, he's the fastest trotter ever to sell a yearling. Not just fast, $2.3 million when he retired. That was a single season's earning record.
It's always a good time here at Harrisburg for the annual Standardbred Horse Sales Company yearling auction. We enjoyed bringing you the Black Book today. We hope you've enjoyed the 2010 edition, and we'll see you again next year. Thanks for watching.